Hey, everybody. Welcome to the past, present, and future of background jobs. According to Mike, oh my God, we're in order. Mike, Rosa, Maciej, and I'm Ben. So just agenda-wise, we wanted to try to do about 30 minutes of canned questions and then really open it up to the audience for the last half of it. So I'm just going to jump into questions as part of our introduction. So if we could introduce ourselves and the job systems that we work on, and what do you think makes them unique or different from the rest of us? I'll start with you, Mike.
Thank you, Ben. I'm Mike Perham. I am the author and maintainer of Sidekiq. I also have a business around Sidekiq, selling Sidekiq Pro and Sidekiq Enterprise. What makes my job system unique? I think I'm the only one up here that depends on Redis, so I use Redis. I like Redis. It's an extremely useful data store, and it's really good at building a job system or powering a job system.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Rosa. I'm the author and maintainer of Sidekiq. I think what makes Sidekiq different right now, before my go-to answer was that it uses a database, but that is no longer unique here. So I will say it's the current default in Rails, and it can be used with different databases. Currently, we support MySQL, Postgres, and SQLite. So yeah.
I have my own. Hi, guys. I'm Maciej. I'm the creator of Karafka, which is the Kafka Ruby framework, and the newly appointed maintainer of Shoryuken, which is the AWS SQS one. So I'm representing myself and a bit of a representing Pablo, the creator of Shoryuken. What makes my job systems unique? First of all, I think that in terms of uniqueness, Karafka is more than a job execution system. So that's definitely something that makes it unique, because it provides like capabilities beyond worker or job execution. And what makes Shoryuken unique? I think one of the things that make it unique is that the fact is that it is a really old fork of Sidekiq, really old. Mike fixed all of the issues that I now have to fix as a newly appointed maintainer.
You're maintaining my code.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Yeah, but what I also think is really unique is that it was almost abandoned. I took it over, and if there are any users of Shoryuken, please ping me, because I need to rebuild the community from the ground.
Hey, everybody. Ben Sheldon. I'm the author of GoodJob. GoodJob is a multi-threaded Postgres-based active job system. I'm like, wow, I think there's less unique stuff than if I had given this 2 years ago, but it's Postgres specific, so it uses some Postgres features. It uses listen, notify. I use advisory locks for them, and yeah. I'm going to move to my next question, which was, if you try to remember back, for each of you, was there some sort of event or motivation that caused you to actually build these things in the first place?
Yeah, there was. I was working as a consultant with a client that had a pretty large installation of Rescue. And Rescue is single-threaded, so you fork a process for every job, and they were trying to run thousands of jobs. So they had thousands of multi-gigabyte processes, and it was just taking an insane amount of RAM. And that's where I said, maybe multi-threading would really help here, since you can share the memory amongst jobs. And that's where the core of Sidekiq, the idea of Sidekiq, came from. Was that the answer to the question, or was there more to the question?
I think that was the question.
All right.
Yeah, my answer is not as nice, I suppose. In my case, what motivated building Sidekiq was that David had this idea for it, and he paid me to do it. I work for 37 Signals, so he's my boss. And so this was a project I got. But actually, what motivated it in the first place was that we use Rescue for most of our apps. Rescue is really, I like it a lot personally, but as Mike said, we had problems with the multi-threading stuff. We have to run multiple processes. We have a lot of custom gems that we built to overcome some of Rescue's limitations, and it had become pretty complicated. So when we started a new app and we saw that we had been porting, bringing the 7 gems or so that we had and a lot of custom stuff for Rescue over and over into every app, David wanted something that just work out of the box in a much simpler way, and we decided to start something from scratch now with everything that we've learned from running running jobs in many different apps.
Yeah, I have a really simple answer to this question: hype-driven development. You know, like my friend came to me, it's like, hey, there's this new thing called Kafka. Do you want to use it? And obviously, I didn't want to do the business logic of the company I worked for. So I needed to find a reason. So I built Karafka exactly for that reason. There was like a really low-level driver, but its development experience was bad. And instead of trying to convince people that we could actually use it, I just wanted to wrap it around. And for Shoryuken, I think I can speak on behalf of Pablo. You didn't want to accept a plugin for AWS SQS, so he just forked that, pretty much. So it's all on you, yeah.
With GoodJob, I think I really wanted something that I could run on Heroku. This was back when there were free dynos that would be able to run in a web process. And there was another job queue system called QUE that I really liked. And that's sort of like the maintainership of that was sort of absent. And I was like, for a hot minute, I was like, maybe I could be the maintainer of this. And I looked at the code and I was like, this is way too complex for me. And I sort of had an experience at work where I was doing stuff with advisory locks and I was doing stuff with concurrent Ruby. And I was like, oh, it would be really, really, really simple to just put these things together and have something that I could just run in the Puma web process on a cheapo Heroku dyno. And that was sort of how it started. So I'm going to ask my next question, which was, so that was how things started. Now where we are today, over your experience of developing and supporting your system or systems, what has most surprised you, or what has sort of changed from your original vision or motivation, if anything?
Yeah, I'm struggling with this question a little bit. I'm a little bit of an odd bird here because I have a business built around a Ruby gem, and there's not a lot of people in the world that have that.
So there's one more here.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
50% of this.
Yeah, there's a couple of people selling pro versions, but I'm just happy that the community by and large accepted that because it really makes me able to I've been maintaining Sidekiq for 12 years now. There's no way I'd be able to do that if I was working for free to put in all the hours and all the polish that I've put into it. So I'm happy that the community, by and large, accepted my commercial offerings.
Yeah, for me, the biggest surprise or the biggest change from the initial vision, for sure, was to renounce, to give up the transactional integrity when queuing jobs. This is something I remember I've discussed in issue or pull requests or whatever with them, because I liked a lot using the database to store jobs. One of the things I liked the most in the beginning was that you could use, if you store your jobs with your data in the same database, and you could use transactions to ensure, for example, if the job fails to be enqueued, you roll back the other data, or things we had some problems in the past when we assumed that the job was going to be enqueued no matter what, and then we made assumptions on that, but sometimes you commit something to the database, you enqueue a job, and maybe Redis is down when we were back using rescue, and so you need to manually roll back the other data, this kind of thing. So since I have dealt with incidents around that in the past, I was very excited about that. So in the beginning, I built the whole thing around this, assuming I will have this. But then Rails core were very much against this feature. I think it was because some people in Rails core used to use delayed job, and they were inadvertently relying on this transactional integrity for some things. And when they migrated out to a different system, they had a lot of bugs there, so they were traumatized by that. I understand. I've been traumatized by job problems as well. So they had this very strong opinion on not having this by default. So I have to change that. And in the end, I have to change it anyway because we have to move to a different database. But the thing is that it was completely 180 turn from what I wanted to do in the beginning. And yeah, and Rails pretty much embraced the not relying on transactional integrity. Even now with active job, by default, I think jobs are enqueued after commit. So after all transactions are committed, even if you enqueue them in the middle. And so yeah, that'll be it.
Okay, for me, a few things actually. There's like part of this question that wasn't read, technically, socially, or anything, right? So socially, I'm quite optimistic about how people accepted the pro version of my software. This made all the difference for me, and how much time I can invest, and how good of a quality of software I can provide when I have resources to do that. What surprised me also, and it still keeps surprising me, is that majority of Rails or Ruby communities still don't understand how good ecosystem we have for Kafka, actually. How way ahead we are in terms of like developer experience and many other things compared to any other language there is. And for Shoryuken, I don't have a vision for it yet, a huge vision. What surprises me is that how old-fashioned it is and how much work Mike did since the fork. And the fact that it doesn't have a UI. This is a big problem for working with it and operating it. Is like, yeah, unacceptable. I'm gonna fix that.
With GoodJob, I think the thing that surprised me the most was how much else people wanted from it. That, like, when I originally, like I said, I was like, oh, it's just concurrent Ruby and a Postgres query. And it was like, I think the first version was like 500 lines of code, and it was just background jobs. And then, like, I'm glad people started using it, but like almost immediately people were like, oh, we also need like cron-like scheduling. And then people wanted batches, people wanted the concurrency controls. And I was very sort of just like, no, it just does background jobs, and sort of like held the line. But I was sort of like, I guess I was convinced, and I think the piece was just like, okay, like I say, like my target was really people that wanted to just run a cheap website and do it well, and realizing it's just like, oh, actually, if you want to not do it perfectly, but just like do it well, do a good job of it. That there was other components that I did sort of come around to realize, and like, no, you actually do sort of like definitely cron-like jobs. And now I think GoodJob is like 20,000 lines of code, and some parts of it I am much less happy about the implementation with than that pristine 500 lines of code. But I guess like just sort of like once you start on that path, I guess maybe, Mike, this is something you've been doing Sidekiq forever, that it's like people just, there is more that you can always be doing to make it better. And I was, yeah, surprised by that.
One of the hardest parts of maintaining a large system, like you say, Ben, is having a vision and sticking to that vision. And if people do ask for functionality, like you say, melding it into something that would fit into your vision. Or, alternatively, saying no, right? Sometimes it's really hard to say no, but you have to. I have a third position, which is I can say, you've got to pay me for it, right? So that's the other thing is if it's hard, the batches API in Sidekiq Pro was really hard to develop. It took me probably 5 years before I got that API stabilized. And so I have no qualms about making that a commercial API because it was just really hard to build.
You can always tell them to pay and then say no, you know?
That's true too. Wonders of free markets.
All right, this is the spicy question. What do you think people get most wrong or misunderstand or require the most hand-holding, or you just wish that people did something differently?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest blockers for Sidekiq usage is its just reliance on Redis. I think a lot of people are comfortable. They understand that they're going to need a database. But then they ask themselves, why do I want to run Redis too? I think it in itself has a lot of value as a data structure server. Applications can really build a lot of interesting functionality on top of the building blocks that Redis gives you. I built a job server on top of the building blocks that Redis gives me. But I think people are a little hesitant to try Redis, and really it's incredibly stable, it's incredibly fast. I love that software, and a lot of people do too, but I would just encourage people, if they've never tried Redis before, to give it a try and maybe read through the documentation and see if it maybe gives them ideas for interesting or novel ways to solve problems they're having in their app.
Yeah, I'm a +1 to that. I love Redis. It's so nice. It's such a great piece of software. For me, I think that was also a big surprise for me. The thing that takes the most work and people seem to struggle the most is that, so with SolidQ, we use, by default, it uses different databases, a different database from your app. So you need to set up to set a different database for Rails. And Rails support this it's built in Rails, and then SolidQ doesn't have migrations. It just uses a schema file to load the database because it's just starting a schema file. But for some reason, first we uncover a few bugs in Rails multi-database handling, because it seems that before SolidQ and SolidQ and SolidCache started setting multiple databases, people weren't using this very much, I think, because there was a few bugs that were uncovered after we released the first version with this and people started using it. That was one thing, but even after fixing those, people really want to run migrations for it. And you don't need to run migrations because there are no migrations, and you just need to load the database, the schema file with Rails. It's just a command, but I still get questions almost every week about why the migrations are not running. And I don't know, it's true that it's a little bit odd, but I don't know. I thought it was clear, like in the README and everything, but yeah, it's the thing that people struggle the most, just setting it up and getting the database ready.
Maybe that's because Rails has engines, right? And they have migrations. So I think the natural expectation would be you plug something in and it operates on a database, so you should have a migration, right? Just add one and you'll not have any more questions. You know?
Now it just becomes a matter of, because it works with the schema, it's the same. You just need to prepare the database, run db prepare, load the schema, as you will do with a new database. And I agree, like if I could just add a migration.
Yeah, just one.
But now now I will die on this hill, like now the schema works. Now it really works. It works. Like you can just use it. I'm not going to create a migration because there is nothing to migrate. There is just a new database. You can just load the schema and it works. It works.
Okay. I'll just keep it. For me, one of the bigger misconceptions that I'm trying to fight with is that people are using Kafka as a message queue, as a job queue only, which is not its primary usage. Yes, I build an active job support for it because people do use it, but it shouldn't be the primary case. So if you're thinking about using it just to run jobs, then don't, pretty much. I spend a lot of time. And the second thing is, no one reads the documentation. You know, I have beautiful docs. No one reads them, which makes me really, really sad. And this requires a lot of hand-holding to teach people that I am writing docs for a reason, and then reason is basically the users. For Shoryuken, I don't know yet. I think that what people got wrong with it is that the expectation that the maintainers will do everything for free, they will never burn out, and they will be happy just by getting stars and giving those stars to their children to eat. So, yeah, I think people get that wrong.
I think on my side, I wrote this question for me to have a soapbox because I have a very strong opinion, which is you should name your job queues based on latency, not on like what they do. So don't have a mailers queue, have a 30-second latency queue for the emails that you're like really want to go out quick, like a reset password email, and then have a like 10-minute latency or 1 hour latency or whenever latency. That's what I call mine for like your bulk email, like mailer, if you're emailing it's like bulk, where you don't actually care when it goes out as long as it just goes out. But I see this all the time of people just, usually people, this is, was it where it's like somebody asked one question, but it's really because of a misunderstanding with something else, where they're just like, how do I do quality of service with my mailers queue? And it's like, well, you don't, you just have two separate queues. So please do latency-based organizing of your queue names. Please, please do that.
And shout out to Gusto. I believe they popularized that idiom. So thanks.
All right. I'm skipping the question on the fold. Next one, we've got, so if you look ahead 10 years, we're into the future part. If you look 10 years into the future, and assuming that Rails and Ruby are still doing good, which we are assuming here, how do you imagine your background job system might be different?
10 years sounds like a long time. Sidekiq has reached a pretty good point of stability. There's not a lot of new features going in. I did just release an 8.0 with a couple of new features, but by and large, I'm not seeing a lot of new features. It's really dependent on the community. If you're using Sidekiq and you want something, open an issue. You're the driver really of the roadmap. But the main thing that sticks in my craw still is the GIL. The GIL really impacts the effectiveness of multi-threading in Ruby, and so I've been trying to work with Raptors for a couple of years now, and they're slowly improving, but it's a long slog. Python looks like they're making progress, getting rid of their GIL, and I hope at some point Ruby will do the same.
Yeah, for me, 10 years, it feels like really long time because SolidQ has been like the 1.0 version doesn't even have a year. It's not even a year old. So 10 years is a long time. So I don't know how much is going to change. It's still quite immature in some parts. So I will hope that it will mature and that some of the parts that I'm not super happy with, especially around concurrency controls, that part I'm not happy with the performance there. I hope we figure out how to improve that in future versions. And yeah, I suppose I will hope that it continues being Rails default, hopefully, and that we can get it to a more like mature state, I guess, and improving the parts that aren't that great. It won't ever be as performance as performant as Sidekiq or Karafka or anything, like not at all. But at least the parts that I know could use an improvement.
Yeah, I agree with Mike on Gil, on Raptors. I've been complaining a lot on them for years, opening issues, being ghosted a bit as well. Yeah, we're not there yet with them, and I hope that, well, I really hope that in 10 years we will. I would love for them to start working as expected faster, because I don't think users' code needs to be Raptor safe or anything for us to elevate those capabilities, because there are things happening before and after the job execution that could benefit greatly out of it. I really hope that in the context of Rails that we're going to get an abstraction on top of active job, like active event, something that is more generalized to bring event-driven architecture to the Rails community, which has been, in my opinion, mostly entity-driven. You know, you have like a user.save, user.update. You don't have batches. You don't have streams. Even with Sidekiq batches, people are just not used to elevating them, in my opinion. It's like, yeah, I'm going to spawn a job for every single user or whatever, right? And in context of my things, I really hope that in 10 years I'm gonna finish the Shoryuken UI, which probably is gonna look like Sidekicks, which is how the first UI of Karafka looked, right? I email you, can I steal the Sidekicks design? And I ask you, is Sidekicks UI under LGPL or some sort of a copyright? And you just said, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, all the code is LGPL in Sidekiq itself, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why it looked like that.
Feel free to steal it.
No, I did. I did change it, though, after a guy that probably is here complained that it looks 2010. It served its purpose, though.
It's 2012. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And in terms of Karafka, I'm like 50% down with it. There's like a lot of capabilities I didn't embrace yet because I haven't had time, or they're just less important than other things I've been doing. But yeah, I hope to bring many new capabilities. Kafka is also evolving itself. The Apache team is working on queues, on normal queues, not constrained by Kafka's technical like design limitations. So I hope to bring that as well to the Ruby community. Yeah.
I think I'm really hopeful that active job gets developed. When I started GoodJob in 2020, like active job, like the active job interface, the API, I think hadn't really been updated since it like was first released in whatever Rails 5 something. And like as I was sort of, like I said, like there's sort of, I imagined it being very simple, and it has gotten a lot of features, but these are all things in GoodJob. And like I sort of, from talking with Rails core people, and I mean, obviously we could fill a stage with people with competing systems, that active job itself is it's sort of like the lowest common denominator of these backend job systems. And so I'm sort of like hopeful now that, especially with SolidQ, that we have like a first party backend, that active job will get more attention and get a more interesting API, or potentially have like other features like concurrency actually built in. And I guess like I'll say I think I'm starting to see that. Like I think there's some new discard hooks that I think a Shopify engineer contributed. I saw continuations, that there's like some good features that are going to be, I think, in Rails 8.1. And so like I'm starting to see some of that ice break on active job. And so like mostly I'm just excited to see, yeah, more of these things where it's just like, great, for GoodJob, I can just hook into, make sure that I support that rather than have to build it entirely inside of my own backend. All right, I have one more question before we're going to go to audience questions. So I mentioned that like we're able to fill a stage here with with 4 people that are all working on things that sort of are in the same space. Where do you think there are opportunities for people who want to develop libraries with the same level of importance as background job systems? So not within background jobs, but is there anything that you wish somebody were to take and develop into a library?
No. I don't know. I mean, if I had that idea, I'd probably build it myself. I mean, we're all engineers. I just encourage people to scratch their own itch, right? That's why I created Sidekiq, because I was literally the first customer for myself. I wanted this system, and so if you're using something and you see it as non-optimal, or you know a better way to build that mousetrap, do it. You know, in my case, I had been doing open source for quite a while, and so how to build for the long term was very much on the front of my mind. So that's why I went the commercial direction. And so, you know, you can obviously, if you want to build something for fun in your spare time, great. But you can also think about, if you're building infrastructure that other people are going to rely on, how are they going to rely on you for the next decade? What's going to keep you going? We each have our own motivators, and so that's where you really need to think about yourself and what motivates you, and what would motivate you for the next decade to work on this project.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I think one thing that I'm not sure Rails still has a good answer for is anything around monitoring and alerting and that kind of thing. Like, everyone does have to do their own. And currently, like at 37 Signals, we do a mix of Prometheus, we use Grafana, we have like different ways to alert, but it's nothing that Rails doesn't help in any way. I wish there was something that you could just use. I don't know if it's the same as, maybe not the same as a job backend, but it would be really, really cool to have it provided by the framework.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like error tracking, generalized one that you could have in a database, right? I think there is a space for complex workflow tooling for Ruby and Rails. You know, there's like temporal, there's a Sidekiq batches. But they're not generalized. There's like fairly limited. I don't like the APIs of neither yours or Acidic job. Sorry, but I think that's you know, we have our own expectations, and I think there's a big space there with being able to understand how the workflows are executed, having a really good developer experience. And I strongly believe that if you build something that has a really good DX, people will be first of all using it, and then at some point, hopefully paying for it. Obviously, there's the AI space, you know. I kind of feel we're a bit behind it with certain pieces of tooling that we could nicely plug in and like utilize some of the quite useful capabilities we could get out of that. Again, with good developer experience and decent UI. And things related to async, like, I didn't mention it before, but stuff on top of what Samuel Williams is doing for, you know, async work, that's like none of us embraced it yet, I feel. And some of the things that LLMs require or how they work are actually play really well with the async reality. So I think there's a huge space there as well. Can it be commercialized? I have no idea, because I strongly believe you need to have a UI. And only then people like can justify the expense. But yeah, but that's my opinion.
I mean, I disagree with none of that, because I think the DX side, having a nice UI, like I think just like mentioning the dashboard side of like Sidekiq as being really great, that I think like, you know, I'm like, what does good DX mean? That I think a lot of like good libraries I really appreciate are ones like, yeah, that I can actually see it and use it. And yeah, having a nice developer dashboard that's easy to set up, like mount inside your Rails app, I'm going to keep pounding on I want to just run in a Heroku cheapo dyno. And yeah, especially like, this is me just asking for somebody to build this, like the logging, logging metrics and exception monitoring, just like that I could just mount as an engine in my app, put in my Postgres database, would be really, really nice to have. And I think those are the things too, is just, yeah, the like visibility into whatever the heck this library is doing is really, really valuable. All right, we are at perfect timing. Do we have any audience questions? And do we have somebody that can run with a microphone to ask them?
Or even see, because it's like...
Yeah.
Do we have one more mic, or should I share mine? No, okay, no questions? Yeah, there's one, okay.
Since we're, as a community, kind of moving towards after commit as the way that we enqueue jobs, which makes sense, especially for something like Sidekiq, where you couldn't even do it transactionally if you wanted to. What do you guys recommend for kind of observability, I guess you could say? Because obviously, if you do something in an after commit, you've kind of lost even any capability to do it as part of that transaction or as in the course of that work. So like if it failed halfway through the work, at least like part of it has failed. So if the after commit fails, what are your recommendations for like, oh, well, that job didn't get enqueued. Maybe I got an error to Sentry or whatever, but if I don't catch that, like, what do I do? What would you do in an application, or what would you recommend?
I'm just gonna agree with you.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good question. I will say it depends on what the job is. Like, I will say in many cases, it may not matter that the job didn't get enqueued. So you log that, but it doesn't cause any data integrity problems. That our problem was with jobs that you expect them to run no matter what, because otherwise your data will be strange. Like it will be not right. So you will need to fix it afterwards. But many jobs are not like that. Many jobs, maybe they are like turbo streams jobs that if they get missed, doesn't matter. Or other jobs that, yeah, maybe you may miss an email, but maybe it's not that important, or maybe there is a way for you to detect that you didn't send it, or yeah. Or maybe you have some kind of, for example, for in our case in Hey, which is the app I'm most familiar with in our email service, there are certain jobs that will be catastrophic if they don't run. So if they don't get enqueued, or if they don't run for someone pulled the plug on the server where the job is running and whatever, and that is emails related to sending email and receiving email. So we have alerts around that. Like we track things in the database that you can alert on, like this email has been delivered, or this email hasn't been, processed, or things like that. So we have alerting there. So we know that if the job failed to be enqueued, we'll be alerted about that. But those are all very specific. Like we know what jobs those are, and we added that logic to those alerts. And in other cases, we even had custom rollback logic. Like we enqueue the job, but when we enqueue the job, we check if the job was enqueued, and if it wasn't enqueued, we roll back whatever we did before. But we only do this in one case, and it's because it's a very specific thing for our app. So yeah, I would say it really depends. I would hope that in most cases, losing a job is not catastrophic like that you have to go back and see what you failed to enqueue and fix it. And for the rare cases that are this critical, then you will have to do something like alerting or manually handling the situation where you enqueue the job.
I agree. Just kidding. But for subcritical stuff, like whatever, because Kafka is like absolutely distinct from the database, right? But for critical stuff, there's a transactional outbox pattern where you actually store the messages or jobs or whatever in a database, and you have a independent process that is dispatching the data in like jobs or whatever in batches to make sure that something you mentioned does not happen. It is not brewed into Karafka yet, the transactional outbox pattern engine. There are two available ones that you can plug in that are open source. But yes, I'm working on the third one, exactly because I really think it is something really important for people to be able to glue their data sources and tooling in a reliable way.
Yeah, there was something that I wish a GoodJob allowed, which will be like maybe within the transaction, you could have like a sort of log somewhere of the jobs you are going to include. They will get included after the commit, but you will have something that will be stored within the transaction with some information. Like you could use, maybe you could mark like certain jobs as critical or whatever, and they will be stored automatically in a sort of log, rolling log, whatever, that you could check afterwards and see if those jobs actually run, something like that. It would be nice, at least for us, it would be nice. We could simplify some of our custom code to handle those situations.
Who has another question? I see a hand back here.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you chose the name of your backend, and knowing what you know now, would you pick something else as the name?
Sure. Yeah. So Sidekiq, I named it because in any sort of Rails app, you always have the main app server, like Puma, but then you also have this thing also running on the side, executing your job. So it's sort of the sidekick to your main app server process. And that's just really what it came from.
Yeah, that's simple. I just put an R inside of Kafka because of Ruby language, right? And it's like Karafka, which is, yeah, Karaf in Polish. I was like, yeah, that's a good name. It also protects me against litigations. Like Apache owns the Kafka trademark. So any type of commercialization would just go down, and I would have to rename, which is, by the way, a really important thing no one thinks. I don't want to say steal, but they borrow the names based on other languages, technologies, without being aware that people may have trademarks on them. With Shoryuken, obviously it was not me, but Sidekiq is, you kick someone, Shoryuken, you punch someone, so kind of get the inspiration.
Fighter?
Yeah, it was also, I think I wouldn't name it that way because Capcom tried to trademark it. They did fail though. The request was rejected, but there's still like a bit of a gray area to have a name that is associated with something absolutely else that you don't control, right? So
very quick little side note there. I eventually got the Sidekiq trademark, but I was rejected the first time because 20 years ago, T-Mobile sold a little cell phone that they called the Sidekiq. And the trademark office said, people could confuse your enterprise software with a consumer cell phone. Womp womp.
Don't you specify the like application space for trademarks, like software, games, other things?
Yep, I specified software. They rejected it anyways. But like I said, the second time around, I got it.
Yeah, mine was, again, super easy. I didn't choose the name. No, in my case, it was because we had solid cache that had been built before by one of my teammates. And he was, in the beginning, that was called Active Record Cache, but we didn't like the name very much. And I think it was DHH who came up with the name for solid cache, like because of the solid state disk and cache, like, it's supposed to be solid. And so when I was building SolidQ, it was just, yeah, it should be called SolidQ because they go together, so super easy.
With GoodJob, it was very much like defensively for my own psychological safety, of the entire point being that like it's good, it's not great, it's not the best, it's not the fastest, it's not the most featureful, and that was largely from being on the internet and feeling. And especially with like background jobs, I feel like always the question is just like, but is it the fastest? Like, what is the performance of it? And you know, like I say, like my goal was run on Heroku. It was like that's really what I wanted. And so by naming it, I was just like really trying to sidestep anybody trying to like place it as like or asking me to place it at the pinnacle of being the best of everything else. And so that was like always, I was like, oh, it's just good. It's good. Don't make it be more than that.
Well, just keep in mind you can sidestep, but you cannot sidekick because he has a trademark on it.
Watch it.
Are there any patterns or practices from outside the Ruby community that you either take inspiration from or you think our community could learn from?
Okay, I can start. I've been accused of writing Ruby like Java. I've seen comments like this on Reddit. Yes, I've seen his code. It looks like Java. I see it as a compliment, actually. I think we're not, but again, me doing marketing partially, so I'm biased, not embracing event-driven architecture enough. Entity-based, telling other pieces of system what they're supposed to do instead of telling them what you did and making them react independently. So that's something I've been missing in many of the systems I worked with. The same with complex workflow modeling, which is done better in some other heavy-duty, old-fashioned enterprise systems. Apotonic with Trailblazer tried. I don't know where he is with it. Probably in a bar drinking beers. But other languages have tools for modeling, including like visual modeling of workflows, being able to debug things and understand that. And we don't have that. So from my perspective, this is something that we could learn from. And obviously better concurrency, right? But that we all know that, so.
Traditionally, the background job has just sort of been this black box, you know. I'm executing your job, I just call perform, and then it finishes. But one of the more recent changes has been iteration support. So now that perform black box has been broken into a number of smaller steps. And that's, I think, been a benefit to make more predictable jobs. So that's one pattern that I've been happy to see the community start to embrace.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm like outside the Rails or Ruby community. I just really appreciate like this group here. Like I'll just say like Mike has been really helpful. Like Mike reached out to me 2 years ago. And was like, you know, I think it was like COVID and like, it was just like, oh, we should just like chat about stuff. And you were really helpful with like talking about revenue models, and you know, had an opinion that you wanted like to share and encourage me to explore that. And I did, and I appreciated you taking the time with that. And like, you know, I think a lot of this, I'm just like, I guess my theme here is like less on the technical side, but maybe just being nice is a Ruby theme. So I'm not actually saying anything new, but like talking with Rosa and, you know, like having very nice conversations with you about SolidQ and you asking for like advice from me about GoodJob. And I do feel like maybe Mike, your theme of this is a black box that you put your thing in. I've really appreciated just like the number of people that are willing to help. And like want people to be successful, and so like I do feel like that aspect of doing libraries and things that there is a really good community. So yeah, this is not Ruby has a great community, so this is nothing new.
Yeah, this guy is great. I launched my pro version and he just commented it's too cheap.
I am pretty awesome. It's true.
You're right, by the way. It was definitely too cheap at that time.
It usually is the first price is usually
Yeah.
too cheap.
I don't see it.
So for the folks that are just like active job based, although I guess Sidekiq has an active job version, and I think you said Karafka can work in active job as well. Yeah. Do you wish active job was faster than it is? I know it obviously works really well. It's fast enough for like pretty much every use case, but you can't help but see like the Sidekiq benchmarks that show that it's like multiple times slower than just raw Sidekiq. Do you think there's anything to be done there, or is it just kind of, it's fast enough, who cares?
Yeah, that's pure marketing probably on his side. So.
But he's awesome, so I don't think he would do that.
Lies, and benchmarks. Yeah, I mean, very few things have taken more of my mental space than the trade-off between keyword argument support and pure JSON, right? That's the thing everybody either loves or hates about Sidekiq. And I've always tried to square that circle and never been able to do it so far. So at least good enough that I would want to release it. But that's hard. I want to get to the point where it looks like a nice seamless method invocation and you can use keyword arguments and anything else you want. I just haven't gotten there. I've got a huge installed base, and backwards compatibility is a massive concern. And so it's just hard to make any large-scale change to Sidekiq and a similar system after a decade of installs. So, you know, it is what it is right now, but that doesn't mean it can't get better a year or two from now. Keep hope alive.
I don't think it matters. With the performance of it, I guess I feel like always the micro, like as soon as you put something in the job, it's gonna blow out the performance of it. So I guess like that little bit of invoking the active job wrapper is going to end up being an infinitesimal amount of time that's going to be happening. And I'll just say, like, I like keyword arguments. I like global ID. I wish more people serialized more data into their active jobs. That's a common question I always get, is just like, how do I put this same data into everything, like current attributes or something? There's something that needs to get built into active job, is taking the current attributes from the environment and serializing it into the job so that those current attributes are current in the job. But like, I think there's quite a lot of potential in active job that can slow it down. Also, Rails instrumentation is slow, and I think for Sidekiq there is less. You get to sidestep all of that. Like Rails does a lot for good and for bad, trying to be helpful, and that takes time.
Yeah, my primary use case is not running active job and convincing people not to, I guess. But as you said, the moment someone puts something inside of this job, it doesn't really matter that much. Could it be faster? Most likely, yes. Does it matter for most of the people here? Probably not. If it matters to some of the people, only then I will actually look into it more. Yeah, I think it's a good job, you know. It's like active job is a good job, so it's a solid job as well. So it's not a side job for you, Mike. So sorry for that.
I think we have time for one more question, if it exists. I can't see anything.
Yeah, it's really hard.
I think we'll probably all stay up here if anybody has questions and wants to just come up and chat. I'm sure I'll be willing to stay here, and I'm sure if the rest probably would be too.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.